Good morning and welcome. This is Ian Nethercott from the famous Auto Hub show, preparing for NADA, and hopefully my voice is at 100% by midweek. Anyway, I want to start with a quick video. So this quick video is a segment of an interview I did on the weekend. So I'm going to go ahead and share it here. So this is a gentleman out of the big town Kelowna who's got an interesting company. Anyway, interesting story too. So here we go. 10 of the best quality salespeople I could train or find. I've got 4 to 5 service writers. I'm going to do that. That's weird. Try again. Yeah, maybe not do much else. The biggest complaint that the dealer tends to have, and I talk to a lot of dealers all the time, is okay, like I'm happy to invest money, but what I want is efficiency and consistency, because the factory shows up and they go, okay, we don't like the carpet, we don't like the drapes, we don't like the tiles, we want you to light the car in a certain way, and we want you to get 100% on every survey, but they don't know how to do that. So the dealer goes back and says, okay, well, thanks for coming into my store and telling me how to spend money and making it fancier. But what I need is people that can do a job and help as many customers as possible. So let's just say, for example, you're helping a dealer with lead process or website or marketing. How do you blend AI into that? Like, how does that work? What's your process?
This is my favorite conversation. There's a lot to this. So there's a lot of processes that are going to be improved through AI, and there's different levels to it, right? There's chatbots, there's AI receptionists that we build, AI employees for BDC, service department booking, all these things. But let's look at the customer experience. When we started building these AI employees into dealerships and testing them, dealers were a little skeptical. They're like, hey, this is the future, but let's try it, right? Let's work on it. The number one question that our team and the dealer had is, how is the customer going to react to it? And if we look at the data of almost every single dealership, 30% of the calls don't get picked up. About 30 to 40% of the people that get put on hold hang up the phone and they call elsewhere. They never call back. Yeah. Right. So just that alone, if you do pick up the phone call, it's usually a bad experience for the customer. Yep. If we can collect 100% of customer information, and we designed a perfect AI employee, that will basically write down every detail about the call, the caller, their contact info, analyze the call, put it into your CRM, book that appointment, give you analytics based on that caller that dealers have never had before. Yep. You help the customer have a better experience online. Now let's look at in person. When somebody walks into the service department or on the sales floor and they go to the receptionist, what's that customer's usual first experience? It's usually the receptionist is on the phone and waves hello, puts their finger up 1 second, talks to the customer. Oh, shoot, now another call's coming in. I'm going to put this customer on hold. All these different areas of friction create bad experiences, not only for your team, but your customers in person and online.
So that's a segment of the interview. I'm going to be releasing it later this week. Pretty interesting. A gentleman has a company, helps car dealers with marketing and AI, specifically around customer experience. So pretty topical, I thought, for the show. Anyway, here we go.
Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
One of the really nice things about Larry, one of the reasons that we brought him to our dealership, is he's so very much aligned with our core values. So with our brand, which is thoughtful and professional service. And because that alignment really worked out well, because he was so committed to the success of others, we really knew that he was the right person to spend time with our sales team, with our managers and each sales consultant. And we're just really thrilled to have a partnership with him. And so we thank him.
How do you adventure? Is it fast? Is it free? Is it clear? Is it rugged? Is it remote? For your next adventure, trust Motoclose for buying, selling, trading, and protecting all of your motorized assets. Powered by Disclos Dealership Management Dashboard, your all-in-one DMS, CRM, menu, lead gen, inventory, staff, client, and deal management solution. Disclos DMD, like a DMS, only better. Mention promo code AutoHub2025 to get special pricing, including waive setup costs, no contract, and your first month's free.
Car dealers often underestimate the power of social media. Are you wondering why my face is plastered in your newsfeed? Are you a GM, dealer principal, or a manager at a car dealership wondering why you see me all the time on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all over social media? Well, that didn't happen by chance. I target car dealers that are in-market shoppers for social media services, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for you so that you target in-market shoppers for your brand of customers that purchase your vehicles. During my Viato days, helping car dealers appraise and price cars, everyone was asking me, what do I do on social media? What do I do with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? And this was back in 2016. So here we are 10 years later. I started a company, became an entrepreneur, and now I help car dealers. They either outsource their social media needs to us, or we have a training and education center where we can teach all of your employees how to do social media in-house. 90% of consumers actually follow a business on Instagram. The average adult sits on TikTok for 2 hours a day in the rabbit hole. To learn more information about it or to get a demo from one of my sales associates, click the link below. We would absolutely love to help you.
All righty, here we go. So actually, I was watching a really interesting thing about TikTok yesterday. The numbers in the U.S. market, I think, are 170 million U.S. adults are users. But I also hear that they're going to be unplugging it shortly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when you look at 3 hours more time that your average American TikTok user gets back in their day. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, I was reading some articles also this morning on tariff impacts because we have the U.S. presidential inauguration today. So it's kind of funny. That's a weird random stat from French fries to pick a random food item. McCain Foods provides 1 out of every 4 French fry sold in the U.S. market. So I thought that was really interesting, just a random stat. Anyway, good morning and welcome. I believe Larry's on the phone as well, so he's not on camera yet, but I'm sure he will be. So, Troy, you've been to NADA, I don't know, what, a few times?
Yeah, I think this is number 6. First one in New Orleans. So I think the last time I was in New Orleans was the last time I missed an NADA. So it's been 6 or 7 years.
So what's your expectation for this year versus, say, Dallas a couple of years ago, or Las Vegas last year, which we all know and love Las Vegas every second year?
Well, I would say this for NADA, and this is, it's interesting because back, if we go back 5 or 6 years, that was when the weather changed a little bit and it became less about the physical goods at NADA and more about software.
Right.
And now it's almost all about software, but the last couple of years was pandemic issues, right? And it's like, how can companies that are these little startups or large companies like ours coming up with a product to help people do things more virtually or what have you, because the way that people want to do business changed. Well, now we're post-pandemic, inventory levels are back to normal, interest rates are going to start coming down in the US and Canada. We have political changes in both countries. I think what I noticed last year at NADA was an overwhelming sense of optimism from dealers, more so than I've ever seen. Dealers were happy. They were in a great mood. A lot of the general sessions and education seminars that dealers and their people went to were all around, maximizing the current situation. I think there's going to be a little bit more of that. Like with our company and Brandy's and so many others, there's obviously going to be a very noticeable skew towards an increase in AI companies, related companies. But I hope to see a continued optimism.
Yep.
I believe that, from a dealer standpoint, the tariffs are interesting because, we supply a lot of vehicles as well as a lot of parts and that sort of thing for car manufacturers all over North America.
Yep.
I think there'll be a lot of talk about it because it'll be inventory scarcity, but I think it'll be dealers pushing that information up to their OEMs and the OEMs using the lobby and NADA talking about it to the government, and hopefully cooler heads prevail. But at the end of the day, I'm excited. I think it'll be optimistic. I hope it's well attended despite the polar vortex that's coming. I'm excited for it.
And I hear avocados are going up in price, so I guess the avocado toast in California is going to be a little bit of a problem or a challenge. I thought that was kind of funny.
$20 an order.
I was like, yeah, avocado prices go up, so I guess Taco Tuesday is a problem. So I was kind of laughing about that. But I actually have to speak about, I guess it was 6 years ago when I went to my first NADA. And it was funny because I think that was like right after the pandemic. So there was like masks were optional. So there was like some people they were like geared up like they were going to the apocalypse, like with face shields and like it was crazy with gloves and stuff. And there was everyone else who just didn't care. But the thing that was really funny was they weren't policing it in the convention side, but they were in the casino side. So it was really, I saw some really funny experiences as like young people got off elevators and security's like, you must mask up. And then the young people were like, yeah, right, dude. It's kind of funny. But Larry, you've been to what? Like, I don't know, 10 ADDAs? How many?
A ton of, and by the way, I agree completely with my friend Troy. I think the feeling of optimism is absolutely palpable. I mean, you can just feel it. I know I'm unbelievably pumped up and excited, and I just think it's going to be a great year. Every perception is reality in Detroit, and right now people perceive things are going to be better. And hey, right, if you get up in the morning and say this is going to suck, it usually sucks, right? If I call Ian and say you're not going to like this, he already doesn't like it, and he hasn't heard it. But when people get up and their mindset is positive, I think it's going to be great. And there's plenty of interesting things going on. Let's see what happens with the EV market.
Yeah.
How does the Honda Nissan merger go? I have some really good friends. One particular that owns a Chrysler dealer.
Yep.
Are they going to get their act together? But I think overall, I think it's going to be a very, very positive year. And by the way, I can say this with him on the line. I'm very much looking forward to stopping by the CPK and shaking hands with Troy.
Rock and roll. So, Brandy, I understand you've never been to NADA, so I guess it's going to be really interesting. I'll share a little bit of experience because my former co-host Jeff Polo, the first time he was there with me, he actually had to do a live show at the show, and he'd never been to the show before. And his big event that he wanted to go see, believe it or not, was Vanilla Ice. And I was like, Vanilla Ice, really, dude? Like, that was your number one choice? Good on you. It was kind of funny. But what was really kind of funny at the time, and not in a good way, but kind of funny, was we're setting up at the booth. I'm not sure what booth we were at. But essentially, they'd hired an AV guy to set us up at this booth. And the AV guy was so impressed with the board that I had to broadcast that he spent like 20 minutes talking about the board. I'm like, dude, I just need it to work. Like, I don't really need to explain it to you. Like, let's make this happen, dude. So it was kind of funny, but it is a little overwhelming.
Ian, could you say that all again? Because as soon as you said Vanilla Ice, I stopped listening.
Well, it's funny with Vanilla Ice because Jeff couldn't make it. Jeff did make it because he was too tired from the show. So just to warn you up front, it's about a 40 to 60,000 person show. For people who are listening who haven't been, it's about 80%, I would say, US, dealers, about 20% international. And those international dealers come from all over the world, with the exception of Russia these days for obvious reasons. But back when I started going, the Russians were there at scale, which was kind of interesting because they'd always show up with a film crew and ask all kinds of questions, probably to steal information. I'm not saying they're doing that, but that's what they were doing. But the thing that's interesting is you get to meet people from all over the world in terms of countries. There is a Canadian contingent. What would you say, Troy? Like, how many Canadians show up?
Well, I think it depends on location, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, Dallas, New Orleans, I mean, it's quite far for people to go.
Yeah.
So unless you really have, if you really have business you need to go to, or you have OEM meetings you need to attend, a lot of people skip those ones. But Vegas is such an easy draw. It's so easy to fly to that those ones are better attended. I don't even want to put a number on it, but when you say 20% international, I mean, it's probably fair to say half of those are Canadians.
Yeah. I mean, you do have lots of people from Mexico and Brazil and other countries. And I've met people from Ireland, from Australia, New Zealand, from different countries.
Yeah.
But Larry, you've been for a lot of years. What's the strangest country you've met someone there from?
I don't know if it's the strangest country. Let's just say, just from whatever country it is, I've met a lot of strange people. When you get that aggregate of people, that many people together, you're going to find some different spectrums of behavior. But Randy, the good news is it's not often I can be in the room and be kind of normal. You know, it kind of blows up the whole. It skews completely differently.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. With 60,000 dealers.
Go ahead.
Yeah, 60,000 dealers in one place. It's always an interesting event.
Randy,
I have to say, I am super stoked for when you guys come back. That's the following show for after.
Oh yeah.
I might have to be the one talking because you guys won't have voices. But I'm super stoked.
No voice.
Randy, we love you. We may even call you from any library. You know? The coolest thing was about I think it was 2 years ago or a year ago. I'm losing what's left of my mind. The NADA was in Texas.
Yeah, Dallas, 2 years ago.
And it was really funny because, as you've all figured out, I'm Mr. Non-Tech. I'm Mr. Handshake and tell you a joke, and Ian's pretty technical. And he was freaking out because the wavelength and what he was trying to dial into was so horrible that it was like constant battle grappling with technical stuff just to keep on. Remember, Ian?
Oh yeah.
Like that. Can you believe this?
Oh.
It's a $12 zillion affair.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I'm getting ham radio signals from Siberia.
Yeah, I don't know how they do CES in Vegas. Like, the bandwidth is so bad. Like, I don't know what they're doing. But the thing that's interesting, if you're preparing to Vegas and you've never been, or preparing for any day and you've never been to the show, the advice I would give people is, number one, rest up. Make sure you have lots of energy and lots of time. Number two, make a game plan. So figure out what it is you want to see, who you want to meet with, what products or services you want to look at, and try and do that, because it's a little overwhelming for that car dealer or vendor or industry professional who's never been, because there's like a couple hundred vendors. But more importantly, the mistake a lot of people make, and not to say this never happens, but in Vegas it seems to happen more than elsewhere, is they do the whole 12, 14-hour gauntlet, and then they go out and get hammered that night, and then they show up the next day and try and do it all again, which is fine. It's fine. Do whatever you want. You're an adult. Not saying you shouldn't do that. But you got to remember, this is probably a 3 or 4 day show. For the people that are vendors at the show or exhibitors, and I've been one myself, so I can speak to it, depending on whether you have somebody setting up the booth for it, even if you do, you basically got to walk in there and you're not sure what you're walking into. But more importantly, it's probably a 12 to 14-hour day. That's probably what it really is. So if you know someone at a booth that you want to meet up with, take the time to take them out to lunch or take them out to dinner or bring them a sandwich or do something like that. And the other thing,
Troy, I believe that's what Troy did with that showgirl last year.
We all have our other families in Vegas, Larry. That's a different thing. All jokes aside, you hit the nail on the head. You have to have a strategy, and there's different kinds of dealers that go to NADA, and you see them all. There's the group where there's 6 or 8 people part of a dealer group or a dealership, and they're walking around like 7-year-olds playing in a soccer game, right? Like, they're all just going from place to place. They're looking for something specific. But seriously, dealers will have meetings around there. So I've known groups that they'll have their strategy meeting, they'll have their OEM meetings, and then they'll go and they'll strategically hit all the appointments they've got and maybe fill in the blanks with some other stuff. Then there's some dealers that go down for the training sessions, the general sessions. They want to, maybe they're working on something with NADA or their local lobbyists or what have you. And then there's people who just walk around with the giant tote bags and they get all the swag they can get. It's like, how many pairs of socks can I get? I think some of these people only shop for socks at NADA once a year. And then they hope that they can get some of that stuff. But it's funny because you'll see someone come in and you know they got 2 bags, they've got a bottle of water, and you can see them coming from a mile away. You got to find the closest stress ball to give them because you're not going to sell them anything.
Yeah, the amount of crap that people collect.
It's like every other element of life and business. It's how you use your time, how efficiently. You know, again, I'm so old school, I freak, but I have a little note that I made up, and I wrote down everybody that I'm trying to meet with, including you, Troy, of course. Brandy, I'm sorry, I won't see you. With the booth number and some rough idea. Now, I may not get to all of them, but for sure, if I don't write it down or have some kind of plan, I'm not. And by the way, Ian was dead on, and the only thing I would add to what he said, and I'm not being facetious, is really comfortable shoes and stay hydrated. Because man, is it a lot of walk.
Yeah, women who are slaves to fashion with the high heels. Ooh, that's a tough day.
Just bring it back up, plan. That's all.
Yeah.
You know, there's speaking of musicians earlier, I read something that Steven Tyler, when they did their residency in Vegas.
Yeah.
He said in Rolling Stone that if you have a chance to see a band anywhere in the world, see them in Las Vegas for the residency because they're rested. They're there for 20, 30, 60 days. The sound is set up perfectly. The stage is set up perfectly. The guys don't have to travel. It's the best possible way to do it. And when we go to NADA, and this is even for someone who doesn't have an appointment, but if you want to go see a vendor, any vendor, we're bringing our A game to NADA. It's all of our concept cars are there. Our best demo people are there. Our leadership is there. Everyone's ready to go. It's the best of the best. So if you're looking, you can have a vendor into your store, totally great. But if you really want to have the best all-in-one experience, book time to see those people at NADA because chances are, if they have a question, they could turn around and find an expert, or they can find their CEO, right? And you know, if you want to see what a screen looks like for a demo product, it's like 5 feet this way, it's right this way, and I got the best guy who can show it to you right now. That doesn't happen most often. So, you know, if you really don't have a plan at NADA, at the very least, make an effort to see something that you're planning on working on for the next 12 to 18. But man, definitely, like Larry said, get a plan, get some demos or get some appointments booked, and you're gonna have a great experience for sure.
By the way, Troy, have you? This is just a little side note with me and my boy Ian Nethercott. Have you ever been to the SEMA show?
I have been to the SEMA show, only one time. Super fun, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of show. That's a lot of show.
Brandy, since you've never been to NADA, if you
I've
take
been to
NADA,
Oh, it's crazy.
Ian and I laughed our butts off as to the excess that they didn't have one tire display; they had 700 tire displays.
Thank you. I'm like, that's all I saw.
Yeah.
It's like, I
we
actually
also
had this little shock that. Yeah.
It was crazy, but the interesting thing, Brandy, the one we went to, which I think was 2 years ago now, was the biggest exhibited custom vehicle, bar none, at the show were pickup trucks. The biggest. Nothing was closed, but none of the big three were there. No American manufacturer had a booth.
Every variation on the thing, lifted, cut, changed, merged with other vehicles.
Yeah, machine guns in it, lowered to the floor, whatever you want to do. Yeah. And I was shocked that you didn't have one of the big three had a booth. Ironically, the big manufacturer that was there at scale was Toyota, which I thought was kind of interesting. I was like, of all the manufacturers I'd expect.
I guess, right?
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah.
But they're always ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
While everybody was making themselves insane with EVs, they were leaning into hybrid.
Yeah.
You can't fault Toyota's vision, you know?
So, go ahead.
Their truck is good looking. You have
Wow.
to say, their latest Tundra is really good looking.
Oh, the Land Cruiser too.
So what?
I
So
will say, and one of the things, sorry, before we get off of it, we're talking about interesting displays at NADA. I still remember my very first NADA when I was walking around trying to find a hot dog or something. Like you said, you try to escape for half an hour to throw something in your face. And I ran by the booth where the company that sells the private jets for dealers. And I thought, well, come on. I mean, every dealer I talk to is pleading poverty. They don't have money for private jets. And then I sort of learned shortly after that a lot of the big groups all have several jets.
oh, absolutely.
It's very interesting to me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the thing that was funny, we did an interview with Hugh Bathcock, or I think it's Bathcock anyway, and he did a couple of years ago before he got sold to Velo. I'll be at the Velo booth 835 for the show. And Jeff asked him a question about private jets. He goes, oh, I was at the booth and they had private jets. He goes, oh yeah, I have one. He goes, what jet do you have? He goes, oh, Gulfstream. It's like, Jeff was like blown away. It was like laughing at that. The other thing that's big at NAJ, if you haven't been, is the parties that go on. Digital Airstrike has one of the largest at the show every year. And I hear CDK has one going on this year. Maybe you can share some details.
Well, again, so we have a party every year. And, we've had some really good ones in the past. I've been fortunate enough. Last year, for example, we had DJ Jazzy Jeff.
Oh, okay, cool.
Our DJs did a whole set. We've had a bunch of really great artists, but this year we've gone in a country direction.
Okay.
So we're going to have a party country night with Trace Atkins. So if you're not familiar, it's going to be a party. We're not going to take ourselves too seriously, but at our event, which is also really, really large every year, a lot of people go. Our companies, we started an hour early for our staff, and we do a staff appreciation event before the dealer appreciation event, because it's not just the show, which is also already hard. It's everything leading up to it. We have weeks of training, and our marketing folks are working years in advance. Our demo and tech people are working, so it's an opportunity for us to thank them too. So we're gonna have Trace Adkins. So if you're in an ADA, come by the booth and grab a ticket. It's gonna be worth it.
What's your booth number, Troy? Because I can't wait to shake your hand.
You know what? I'm gonna find that for you. Give me 2 seconds. I want to say 1201 and 1301, but I might have just directed you to somebody else. Give me 1 second, Larry.
Sure.
And then Larry, you're going to be doing. Go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, I was gonna say, so already I've learned in just these brief little bit of conversation to absolutely plant somebody next to the fighter jet booth. Because you will absolutely
Fighter jet
see
booth.
who is sitting there, and then when they give you the line about the budget,
Well, that or the massage. There's always a massage chair booth too. That's another place to really look at.
Randy, your best advice is when we eventually get you to go to one of these things, is hang with me, because a good time is guaranteed. I've never
just
bored
so we're
you
clear,
yet,
I
right?
insist on that. I will be tagging along, and I won't be shy or shameful to do it by any means.
So, Larry, you're doing a broadcast. You're doing a broadcast from the show I saw today.
Yeah, but what's going to happen is we're going to do lethal sales.
Okay.
I've invited Brandy, Troy. You know you're always welcome every Wednesday, but this Wednesday won't work because Peter has already gone to the show. He'll be there tomorrow. So we're going to do it Saturday, 12 noon their time.
Okay.
It's New Orleans time, and obviously, Ian, I'll be hanging with you as much as I can because
Yeah.
I doubt too many people have more fun than you and I do with
Exactly.
the English interviews and all the other stuff.
Yep. We'll be doing lots of interviews. If you can't book one on the Auto Hub show, just come see us at 835, which is Velo. I've got about 40 interviews booked, but I should be able to squeeze you in. I will also be doing interviews with CDK booth and elsewhere around the show. And of course, if you want free, and I mean free gear, I have hats and shirts at the show at no cost while they last. I think I'm bringing 50 of each. So if you are a supporter of the show or a fan of the show and you want one for free, I'm not charging for them, obviously, for obvious reasons. I have 3 colored hats as they last, and shirts are all black. I will have a limited amount of triple XLs just because I've been told I have to buy those for U.S. market. But I will have all sizes. So there won't be a lot of mediums because that's not a popular size, but they will be double-sided, and the hats are unique for this event. So there'll be a new design from a company out of Texas called Branded Bills. They do a pretty high-end hat with a custom stuff on it, so we'll have that. But having been,
So I'm curious of one thing. What is the best swag anybody has gotten from NADA? What, like, I love marketing. I
The
love
best
any
what?
You can brand that is something.
the best swag, the best swag, you mean? Oh God, I don't know. Go ahead. I like that dancing robot from a couple of years ago. That was kind of cool.
I swear I was gonna say that. You got the red and blue one, remember?
It's like a dancing robot. Really goofy, interesting. Most of the shit I throw away, but yeah. What do you think, Troy?
I've been to so many of these things, and I joked about the socks earlier, but literally the one thing we get asked for so often is socks. But I like stuff I can use. I mean, you go around. I got charging cords and pie, like little battery packs and stuff. That's huge. I love that stuff. But there was. It's not even just the little swag that's cool. There's some stuff that is, but it's some of the bigger giveaways. Like you go by the Sirius XM booth, you're gonna get like a Slash autographed guitar or something like that. But
this is cool as a business card. You can clean your glasses with it.
100%. Like we have a couple of things that are staples to our booth. We've got the usual electronic stuff and mints and that sort of thing. But man, we got some cool stuff this year. If you're gonna come in and do demos, we've got like sets of earbud headphones. And there you go.
These are from Retail Resilient. She was giving them out a couple of years ago, which I thought were pretty good.
Brady, we've got this one item that we are not allowed to get rid of in our swag booth because the marketing team will allow it because it's so popular. It's a lip gloss with a light in it, and we literally every year re-up on that item and not on any of the other ones. It changes all the time. That was our only consistent one because it's literally people will walk all the way over asking if we got a good one.
I think the big one.
Now you've got repeats on what they saw that last year, and that's what I was also curious about.
The big one this year, I think, is going to be the Air Jordans. Some booth is giving out Air Jordans. That's going to be a big deal. I think they got them branded in their color, so it's like I think their color is green, so the logos and stuff are green. And I think Rapid Recon did orange shoes last year. I don't know who made them, but something that people can use. Yeah.
I was going to say, Brady, I think the thing that draws people into the booth a lot, especially in Las Vegas, and I don't know if they could do it in New Orleans. I mean, it's New Orleans, of course, like Vegas to the south. A lot of booths have bars in them.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Open bar, man. Oh, that's a big deal. The other one that was cool was there was a company a couple of years ago. They had a shirt. They had you could make like 6 different types of shirts they made on site. They were like different designs. One of them was like from I think it was from like Glenn Garrigan Ross. It was like Cadillac steak knives fired or something like that I had. I think I destroyed a couple of years ago, but those kind of things that are memorable. You got to be memorable, but more importantly, you got to remember that people are going to have bags of stuff, most of which they're going to leave at the hotel. So you got to get in that 5% that they put in their bag. That's what you want to be at, in my opinion. And these.
What are you going to give them that they're going to carry around for the rest of the show?
This is a great, simple thing for small companies because people have glasses, sunglasses, or other. It's a great way to have something that's got your logo on it that's useful. I mean, I don't know what it costs, but I have this one from a couple of years ago that I still use today, right? So, I think it's a question of don't buy stuff to buy stuff. Really think about what's going to be useful for that person.
Yeah, it's got to be useful.
What do you think, Larry?
That's the other thing, too.
Oh, go ahead.
The other thing about being useful is that it really does need to be practical if it's going to get used. Stress balls, I mean, let's face it, we all have 100 different ways of dealing with stress, and stress balls aren't usually one of them. But, when it comes right down to it, a good pen, a good charging brick, a good, lens cleaner, screen cleaner, things like that. It's stuff you can use every day. And at the end of the day, if I walk into a dealer's office and I see a branded item on their desk, it better be one of mine. And, if even if it's just a coffee mug, something, but.
A lot of people give out those Yeti lately. I've seen them give out those Yeti coolers for a contest or something. That seems to be a big thing, like the big ones. But that's another thing. Another one that I've seen them do is they have like a hole-in-one contest or something to that effect. That's a little old school, but I think that there is the ability to do sort of like drop your card in a bowl kind of thing that works for some of the smaller booths. The challenge today, I think, is that most people don't have business cards anymore. So if you are going to NADA, the NADA app is a good resource just to find out what's going on. You can download it every year. It's pretty useful. The other thing that people don't realize is when you have a badge, some of those badges are given out by a booth, so it may not be their badge. So just be sure to ask that person, who they actually work for, because in some cases they're comped a ticket, for example, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing.
One of the things, about the swag, and all jokes aside, good stuff, good swag, bad swag, the goal of it is to have a substantive conversation with someone in your booth. And the swag is a reward for that. And, it's going to change varying on the length of the conversation. But, one of the things that I look forward to most in NADA is you stand around for about the first half hour while everyone figures it out.
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of getting into their place. The show's open. It's a little louder, but it's still trying to figure it out. And then at around, 11 o'clock, it's chaos right until the show closes. Saturday, it starts a little earlier. But just that rush where 4 hours blinks by and you didn't even notice it's so much fun. It's my favorite part.
Larry, what do you think on the swag? Do you keep anything you get from the show?
Yeah, I think Troy hit it right on the head with the charging stuff. Because everybody's on their phone, they're calling their stores, they're calling other people, they're trying to locate a little charging block or is always great. You and me laughed our butts off. I still have the robot, little dancing robot. You know what else comes in handy? Since you've been wearing glasses longer than I have, but my vision is not what it was. I like the people that give out glasses. Again, just stuff that is going to have some kind of use or purpose. Hey, Troy, 20 years ago, what we did, we gave you a pen because everybody used a pen and it had the name of the company or a refrigerator magnet or something like that. Anything that's functional, anything that can make you smile, but it also dials back into, what I always talk about, which is people. If you get a booth where the people are actually friendly and make eye contact, it can make all the difference. Because unfortunately, some of the people, just like you would expect, it's almost by rote. Hey, can I scan your badge? How are you? But if you can be a little warm and have something that's kind of cool, or a cold drink, or a piece of candy, or something, it's like everything else. People are going to be drawn to what piques their interest. If they're looking for AI, if they're looking for something in the shop, and if you can tie that in with something that might be useful and functional, or might be fun, and you can get them to smile, I think you're halfway home. I mean, let's face it. More now than ever in our society, being able to socialize, being able to make it where it's not just, okay, here's this and here's that. What do you want to do? If we can make it friendly, and I think it adds on to everything. But having said that, I'll look for another red robot. We'll send it to Brandy, and I'm always looking for a charging bar. So I think we're all aligned here.
Well, the other thing I'm going to this year, which is a first for me, a good buddy of mine, Mark Rikus, recommended, is the night before the show opens, there's an opening reception. It does cost a few $100 for a ticket, but from what I understand, it's a lot of value because a lot of the dealers do show up to that because it's more of an informal sort of meet and greet. I haven't been to a keynote, so I'm not sure on the keynote side. I know last year in Vegas, they had it at the new Dome or whatever it was. The other thing that I think would be a very good thing for NADA to do for the vendors is give them the opportunity to attend the breakout sessions. Because I always thought that was kind of interesting that you kind of had to buy a different pass, but more importantly, like, unless you're a dealer, you're like banned from these sessions, which I thought was really interesting. Like, I think they're missing an opportunity there to not only generate revenue, but to have more people in those meetings. I actually have been trying for multiple years to get a press pass. This year I didn't even get any response, which was kind of funny. But That's another thing that was funny. It was easier for me to get a press pass at SEMA than at NADA, and SEMA has a much tougher process. So it was kind of interesting. So that's my only feedback there. The other thing, which I think is will be interesting this year versus last year, you're doing about 30,000 steps at Vegas, and the problem with Vegas is there's 2 convention halls, so you spend a lot of time walking back and forth. I'm not sure in New Orleans what the convention setup's like, but the other takeaway, having been a vendor and actually having booths, is if you're not a large vendor, you might want to think about having 2 smaller booths. That way you're capturing people that may only see part of the show because there's so much. Do you have any sense of the amount of booths, Troy, at the show?
I don't. And when I saw the map, I only get to see the map of the building that we got stuff in. And I think they're splitting out. There's the heavy truck building is going to be in a different building.
Right.
So that's always a different setup. So it's really hard to say, and I don't have those numbers. I do, however, have a couple numbers for Larry. 1301 and 1501. That's
hold on. Give that to me again, my buddy, because you will exactly see my go one more time.
1301 and 1501.
So if you're going to NADA,
hard to miss. We got like 2-story booth. Pretty easy. 1301,
1501. Yep.
Yeah, let me give a tip to you, Troy, because you're my guy. Trace Adkins happens to be terrific, no question. But if you get a chance with all your responsibilities and people, sneak out at one point and try to get the preservation ball. It'll blow your mind. It's a bunch of older jazz guys. It is awe-inspiring. I've been to New Orleans multiple times. It never stops me from have my jaw drop open. And I'm a musician. The way these guys play in their field, it's scary.
Yeah, the other thing you want to be aware of, especially if you're going to a town where there's going to be a lot of people there, is if you're planning on going out to dinner with anybody, you want to be making your reservations early and have multiple reservations as an expert tip I think Tim Hayden told me to do, or somebody else, because it's entirely possible all the restaurants will be booked. So bear in mind that there's a limited amount of options. And actually, if you're looking for options in New Orleans and you haven't been, I did reach out to the convention center, and they actually provided me a list of restaurants. So if anyone's looking for a list, that was kind of interesting. I was expecting 5 restaurants, but she sent me a massive amount of list. And since it's a tourist place, there is a lot of great food in New Orleans, but there's also a lot of older restaurants, but there's food for every price point. So don't think that you have to spend, like in Vegas, $200 for a steak. You don't.
Our notes.
Yeah.
ARNAUDS.
Yeah.
I haven't been to New Orleans for a while. Every time I used to go to there. Food's terrific. The atmosphere is terrific.
So what's the best food to go to in that town? Like, what do you think? You haven't been there a lot.
The best
type of food. Like, what do you go towards?
Well, you've been around me enough to know I'm the world's most boring eater. I'm like the opposite of Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, okay.
So anybody else would be smart enough to eat the beignets and all the weird stuff that they do that's their delicacies. I'm just as boring as I am at every other place. I'm going to look for a steak or a hamburger. I'm not the guy you want to dine with, Troy or Brandy, if you're looking for exotic eating. Exactly.
Yeah.
My culinary, my cuisine is very limited.
Yeah, I mean, I was there 30 years ago when I was in the hot sauce business. I went there on the way back from the Fiery Food Festival, which was kind of interesting just because it is a Cajun/Spanish place. And there's restaurants that have been there since the 1750s, I think. This was pre-tsunami or wherever that was, which was unfortunate. But there are a lot of older restaurants. But the po' boy sandwich was created in New Orleans, and that was created as a low-cost food item. But because there's Cajun, there's Acadian food, there's Spanish-inspired. But the thing that's really interesting, and was probably the most interesting thing for me when I was there last time, was it's one of the few cities I've ever been to where there was an entertainment tax at some of the bar nightclubs. So when there's a live band, they charge you a tax on it for the entertainment, which I thought was kind of interesting. But the other thing you need to be aware of, having gone to New Orleans myself, is just be cautious because there are some people that are on the grift in that town. So just be aware of that. It's very similar to Vegas in some ways, but the architecture and history is quite staggering. So if you are actually in the town for more than a couple of days, you may want to check out some of the stuff going on in the town. And Larry's 100% right. Some of the best probably blues, Cajun, Acadian music is from that area. So there's some amazing musicians.
Talk about the town that gave us Louis Armstrong.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong. And as far as people being on the grid, the difference between New Orleans is the police are on the grid.
Well, I hear they had some challenges with barricades. That's what I heard. They had them somewhere. They just weren't sure where they were, or something like that. Yeah, they had a little bit of challenges there.
You're right, Ian. Like when you get out of the show, take your badge off. We are going to be wearing logo crap anyway, so it's going to know it's 100 miles away. But let's not make it too super easy. But I'm excited for the food and the music. I think at least we've got our big party on Saturday, but for us, Friday and Sunday are going to be walk the town, listen to some good music, maybe have some jambalaya or etouffee or something like that, because you have to when you're there one time. And the rest of the time, just enjoy it and take it in. I think that's one thing that these cities host these conventions because they've got the capacity to do so, and it brings in good money. But their ultimate goal is to make you fall in love with the place and come back. So I'm hopeful for a really good time, and it'll be excellent. But let's not bury the lead here. I've known you for the bigger half of a decade. Ian, I've never heard you were in the hot sauce business.
Yeah, I was in the late 90s. I owned a hot sauce company called Wicked Enterprises. We made a line of hot sauces in Toronto, actually. Sold them through retail in Ontario market. And actually, I went to the Fiery Food Festival, which is about 1,500 manufacturers in one place. They usually have it in either New Mexico or Arizona, but I always happened to be there. And since I was a hot sauce guy, I had to go to tour the Tabasco plant. So Tabasco, if you're not familiar, owns a small island called Avery Island, Louisiana. It's one of the oldest hot sauce companies on the planet, still family owned and operated. And you can visit their plant. Their plant in Avery Island, Louisiana is a private island. They make 150,000 bottles a day at that one facility. And it's fascinating because they started out with 3 ingredients. There was a rock salt mine on the island, so they used that. Peppers grew naturally on the island, so they used that. And then they mixed it with vinegar. And the first year, they actually put it in used perfume bottles and sold it to their friends. Now, that was over 150 years ago now, but they're now sold in, I think, 130 countries around the world. But the thing that was cool about that company is simplicity, number one. And number two, all the batches are cast aged in oak barrels, and a member of the family still inspects every batch. So it was really interesting. But I'm a hot food fan, and I got into this business not knowing anything about retail food. Learned a lot. The big challenge in retail food is you got to basically provide the product up front, and then if they sell it, they give you some money. And it's a very expensive upfront cost. But hot sauce is still a passion to this day. I've always been a fan of hot food. So obviously, New Orleans is on my list just because talking about Cajun food. You're talking about food from Acadians who are really French Canadians that are confused, that have lived there, but also Spanish inspired food. So there's a lot of great creative French cooking with a little bit of a spicy bent that's available. So if you're a fan of hot food, don't overdo it, but there's definitely a lot of options. And a lot of the big hot sauces are from that area. So whether it's Frank's Red Hot, or whether it's Tabasco, or whether it's other places, there's a bunch. Actually, Tabasco, I just bought a bottle on the weekend. They have a new product with sriracha. So it's Tabasco with sriracha combined, which I thought was interesting because that's their big competitor now is sriracha, because that's kind of another sort of interesting hot sauce thing. But yeah, I did that as a passion project. It was interesting. Not something I'd do again, but was very interesting.
Did your wife like spicy food as well?
Absolutely.
She's going with you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, my wife will be there for sure.
Awesome.
She's a fan of spicy food, and probably not as much as me, but she likes spicy food, yeah. I made a Caribbean-inspired sauce, so that's one of my favorite types of hot sauces, which is a combination of sweet and heat. There's a lot of very hot. I'm not a big fan of very, very hot stuff, but, I like complex ones. But if you're ever in Albuquerque, New Mexico, or Arizona, there's a festival every year called the Fiery Foods Festival. Every hot sauce manufacturer shows up. There's about 1,500 usually. It's a little overwhelming because after you try about 5, you're not really tasting anything. but it's crazy. Yeah. So that was a long time ago. That was before I got in automotive retail, but yeah, I did that for a while. Yeah, it was interesting. I manufactured, bottled, and distributed and sold through retail. Actually, I'm line hot sauce.
Hey, Ian, we have taken over. Don't often get breaking news on this show, but since we started the show till now, Trump has backed off on imposing tariffs right away.
Yep.
So as of 30 minutes ago, so we can take a breath and hopefully get us all a chance to reset.
Well, I'm going to be doing a show.
It's closing me on a sale. Hey,
Yeah.
he needed some car parts.
Yeah.
That's why.
I'm doing a show. I'm doing a show at the end of this month. I'm going to do a show at the end of this month, Canada versus USA, just on tariffs, because I'm curious as to what the impact is going to be, but more importantly, how the different countries adapt to it. So it was really interesting. I was reading an article before the show this morning that 1 out of every 4 French fries sold in the US is made by McCain Foods. But what was interesting also was just the range of products. Like it was the amount of products that the US imports and exports was fascinating. But more importantly, the premier of the province I live in, Alberta, basically over 50% of the fuel that's sold in the US market comes from Alberta. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there if there's a tariff on that oil, because it's a large amount of oil. It's billions of dollars a year.
He's going to use the tariffs as leverage.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the Europeans have tariffed us to death.
Yeah.
And his threat of tariffs is what set up the Remain in Mexico policy.
Yeah.
He's not only is he a businessman, he's surrounded himself with some very astute economists.
Oh, 100%.
And they're smart enough to understand that anything that'll stall an economy that was so bludgeoned by interest rates and lack of energy.
Yeah.
Trust me, he wants to do the right thing and he wants to look good. He wants his policies to work. And we know for a fact he's only got 4 years because he already had a term.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I 100% agree. There was I think it was a business person I was watching about this, and he says there's the smoke and mirrors or the big story, and then there's actually the focused strategic thought. And I think people are afraid of the threat of something versus making a deal. And I think it was Danielle Smith I saw on the weekend. She was being interviewed by an alternative news media, Rebel News here in Canada. And she said, listen, we've retained relationships with the U.S. for a long time. We have a representative in Washington that's a representative of the Alberta government. I went down and met with Trump, and I'm going to the inauguration. Really, it's about having conversations. It's not about threats. And I think the mistake that the current government, not to beat them up any more than they probably deserve it, but instead of going down and meeting with people and saying, listen, let's work this out, they're doing threats, which is a mistake, in my opinion. That's a bad strategic move. And that's why chances are they'll be voted out of office. Not to say one's better than the other.
There's a rational explanation for that.
Yeah.
Trudeau was too busy doing useless, unimportant things like freezing bank accounts and locking up truckers who were peacefully protesting. And Biden forgot he was president. So it was very hard to get those two together for constructive conversation.
You mean it was a one-sided conversation? Is that what you mean?
Something like that.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to bring up another interesting political thing in the Canadian market. In the UK, when the prorogue tried to happen in the UK, they took it to court. And Canada is doing the same thing. And the thing that's interesting there is it may actually force an election because technically Trudeau didn't have the justification to prorogue Parliament. And it's a legal challenge that's going to be heard. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But more importantly, we're going to have a change in Canada this year anyway. So I don't think it really matters. And it'll probably be to the other side, not to tell anyone how to vote, but more than likely Trudeau and his, current crop of whatever are not going to survive. And that's going to mean alignment between Canada and the U.S. I happen to live in Alberta, as does Brandy, and I think it's pretty clear that our premier is already way ahead of the game, as usual.
She's my hero.
Yeah, she's unbelievable. I mean, she basically went down there and met with Trump, and now Trudeau's all unhappy because she's basically taken away any negotiation power the guy has. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I agree with you, Larry. I think you're going to see a lot of positive change. And, heaven forbid people in California have to pay $5 for avocados, right? Like that might be a problem, right? So, but I do hear on the positive side, Elon Musk has donated a bunch of cyber trucks to help fight the fires in LA. So say what you want about Musk, clearly he wants to help. And I think that's the core thing here is that, we can all get along if we all work together and run in the same direction. The mistake is not making a deal, whatever your politics are. You've got to sit down and have an intelligent conversation. And I think part of the challenge is, is instead of doing that, it's like, that guy's bad, this guy's good. I mean, it's to me, it's about, let's work it out so everyone does better. And that's what I'm hoping does happen. I'm pretty confident it will, because I don't think the crazy agenda for the last 10 years in this country and the last 4 in yours will continue much longer. I don't see it happening. Even you have people who traditionally are on the left side are now saying, well, I got to come kiss the ring now. So, but what do you think the inauguration is going to be like today?
Yeah, it's called being pragmatic.
Yeah.
That's all. The guy has a mandate. The Republicans have the House, we have the Senate. We've got a very charismatic president, and you're coming off a very unpopular agenda.
Yeah.
There's things you can debate, but you can't debate when people can't afford food.
Yep.
Or gas.
Yep.
Or the policies. Do you know? Listen, we're on a show with. I'm the dumbest person on the show. Brandy and you and Troy are smart. You're all aware that if you have a kid in school, they have to get your permission before they can give the kid an aspirin.
Yeah.
But in certain parts of America, it's okay to give the kid a sex change and not notify the parents.
Yeah.
So when you're reversing policies that are just universally stupid and wretched, the guy's got a mandate, he's got the Senate, he's got the House. And if you're a business person, this is like getting an argument with your boss. If you win, you still lose.
I agree. How do you think the inauguration is going to go? I hear they're doing it inside because I hear climate change isn't real and there's a little bit of weather.
Over my shoulder. It's one beautiful.
Yeah.
He's so popular that he's loaded up Capitol Center, which is where the hockey team plays.
Yeah.
Last night and today, and people are watching it regretfully that they couldn't see him. But I can't speak for everybody, but for myself, I'm extremely excited that he's in and that Biden and Kamala Harris are out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a very interesting year for a lot of reasons. I'm happy to say that it looks like Israel's made a deal there. So it looks like that's going to be over, and I'm pretty confident we're going to see the end of this Ukraine conflict. And hopefully we'll get back to the new normal, which will be let's get cranking back on 8 cylinders. And the thing that's funny that Troy brought up earlier was over the last number of years of NADA, you kind of get a pulse of the market because you talk to a bunch of dealers all in the same place. And what I've seen over the last, say, 5 or 6 years is it goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down. And what dealers went from being panicked to think they had it all figured out to then needing help. So what do you think the flavor this year is going to be? I mean, what do you think? Like, what do you think people are
positive? People excited.
All right. And what do you think, Troy? I mean, do you think there's going to be more sales than last year? Do you think there's going to be more interest than last year? More questions? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a lot of positivity, but like Larry said, it's all going to be all about the attitude and the mood and how everyone's going into it.
Yeah.
There's always going to be questions about oversupply, undersupply, interest rates, things of that nature, and we know how a 0.5 point percentage can swing the market for a good period of time. But if these tariffs are on pause and the interest rates are coming down, I think we're going to have a real good show. It's going to be very positive. And it's New Orleans. Everyone's there to party, right?
100%. It is a town of endless drinking, it seems. But Brent of my brothers was going to university, I think at Tulane University, I think is the big one there. And I thought it was a good idea to drink 24 hours a day for a couple of days. And then he got arrested for doing something pretty dumb. But yeah, I mean, control yourself, have a good time, but be safe, fly safe. For people that are in the Florida panhandle, there's going to be some extreme weather. So if you're flying, just be more patient than normal. You've also seen extreme weather, I hear, in Larry's neck of the woods. And the reason is, I don't know, maybe climate change isn't real, no idea. But it seems like it's been a very cold weather year this year, not just in where I live, but also in Florida. And I know people go to Florida to escape the cold weather, so that's kind of got me smiling a little bit, but
Ian,
not in a good way.
It's strictly a matter of being open-minded
Yep.
and paying a little attention. In the history, if you go backward, and I'm not talking about the ice age.
Yeah.
We've always had climate swings. We've always had periods of
Yeah.
heat, of cold. The only reason you see that people can blame things now on climate change is we've infringed upon where nature is.
Yeah.
And we've put more people in. This thing with California, this horrible tragedy.
Yeah.
If you had people that were responsibly running government, they would have done deforestation. They would have had the burns they used, and maybe they would have made sure there was water in the giant 1.5 million reservoir tank.
You think?
But you go look back in history. There's always been periods in climate changes and shifts. And the final nail in that coffin is it doesn't really matter what we or our neighbors to the north do, because as long as China and India continue to pollute, it doesn't matter what we do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's very unfortunate in California. My younger brother lives in LA, so I've been talking to him on a regular basis. It's very unfortunate because a lot of people lost their homes. But the positive side of it is you're going to see some accountability finally from government, because people just aren't going to tolerate it. And there was a celebrity I think I saw on the weekend, and he said, I pay 18% taxes and I still can't get my home protected from fire. Like it's ridiculous. And that's really just an expectation more than anything else. I think if you're paying taxes to a government, pick your government, they should at least give you safety and security and protect yourselves from disaster and fires. I mean, that to me is just the common sense. But I'm hoping New Orleans is a great event. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. Brandy, I'm sure we'll see you next year. You've been to SEMA, so it's smaller than SEMA. SEMA gets about 250,000 people. NADA gets somewhere between 40 and 60,000 people. We will be doing a lot of interviews at the show, but I won't have time to edit them there. So if you're not going to NADA, you will be able to watch those interviews probably a couple days after I get back. And then I do have 2 interviews that are going up later this week from my new interview show that started last year, so it's 2nd season. And if you are in the fixed top sides of the house and you want to get on our new fixed top show, the first show will be in February. So stay tuned for more detail on that. It's going to be a live weekly show like this show on Friday afternoons. The reason Friday afternoons is it's the best time to do a fixed op show because fixed ops managers aren't really big in the morning, Monday to Friday anyway. So it's going to be an afternoon, evening, so East Coast. So check out the website for more details and have yourself a great week.
I hope it's very successful for you guys.
It'll be good.
Looking forward to seeing you.
Ciao.
Stay safe. Selfies. I want selfies. I want selfies. And I want to add one thing.
Yeah.
If tech or if buzzwords like AI do anything for what you guys are about to go to, it's going to open up even just conversations you wouldn't normally have. And so I'm super hoping that you guys have just a great show and travel safe. And we'll see you next week.
Brandy, we just talked about artificial intelligence. We mentioned Trudeau. I mean, what else do you want? That's not artificial. I don't know what else.
And Peter commented from LinkedIn. Peter Smith, he'll be at NADA. We'll see him at the show as well. And travel safe. And don't drink too much. I hear there's a little bit of corruption in the police force there. That's like a little bit.
Stay healthy, everybody.
Ciao.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.